earlier in the show, in the Breaking the News segment, I said I didn't know who is playing the halftime show at the Super Bowl this weekend. It is Coldplay, and reportedly with a guest appearance by Beyonce. I will have something to say about the new Coldplay video, which includes Beyonce, in a little while. But that's going to be dessert in this, at least for me, after we get through talking about something else I want to talk about. And by the way, Lady Gaga is reportedly going to sing the national anthem. So when I said in my usual cranky way that there were no new superstars nowadays, I left out Lady Gaga. She is definitely a star. She has star power. She knows how to deliver that, and she's old school that way. So sorry, Lady Gaga. Sorry that I forgot you. Okay, now before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about all the debate over health care. Former Senator Clinton says we're never going to have universal health care coverage in this country. We're never going to have a single-payer plan. Bernie Sanders has proposed one. A lot of the self-appointed arbiters of what is serious or not serious in Washington, D.C. have come out and said that plan, single-payer and as offered by Bernie, will never come to pass, and that it's not a serious plan. I have some thoughts on that. First of all, it's okay with me if people want to say that Bernie's plan is not the best, even though I wholeheartedly support it. And once again, I do work for Bernie Sanders. But it's okay if people want to disagree on that, especially people who consider themselves to be on the left politically. It's fine if you want to say that's not the best plan we can get. But there are two things that do concern me and trouble me, frankly. Number one is when people say the Affordable Care Act, as it exists now, I mean, it's clearly better than nothing, which is what we had before. But when people say it's better, that it's the best we can get, or that it's the ideal plan, I really think that's the wrong approach to take politically and as policy. Politically, people don't like the fact that their personal share of healthcare expenses, if they get it through their employer, is going up way faster than inflation. The figures are staggering. In fact, now the average family of four with quote-unquote good PPO-type insurance coverage from their employer spend nearly $10,000 a year out of pocket. Middle-class families can't take that. 29 million people are uncovered by health insurance at this point. That's not acceptable. That's not the status quo. So let's not talk about the status quo as being acceptable. The dialogue should be, how do we make yes, thank you for the Affordable Care Act. How do we solve these problems of unaffordability for people who have health insurance and the 29 million people who do not have health insurance? That should be the conversation. So I am really candidly put off by the self-described liberals who are eye-rolling the Bernie Sanders plan without making constructive solutions. Now, I'll give you an example of what I think constructive criticism is. And again, I don't agree with this writer, but I like his approach to it. His name is Charles Gaba. And he says, okay, so what about Hillary's health care plan? What he says is that the Affordable Health Care Act, I'm paraphrasing, is huge, cumbersome, insanely overcomplicated, and creates a ton of headaches. However, I think the system was already cumbersome and complicated, so he wants the ACA to work. Now, when he says single payer, he's for it. But how do you get there? He says his idea is to start making Medicare, which is currently available to people over 65, rather available to people who are younger, and to do it incrementally, to move down the age ladder gradually to make it available to presumably 55 to 65-year-olds, which was a proposal that was out there while the Affordable Care Act was being developed, then younger and younger age groups, but to do it gradually so as not to disrupt the system. Now, do I agree with that? Not necessarily. But that is the kind of dialogue we should be having, not how to defend the status quo because it was put in place by Democrats and I want to show I'm a good Democrat, but how to get a system that works and makes sense for everybody and is affordable for everybody. So the response to the Bernie Sanders health plan should not be, let me show you why I'm pragmatic, because let's face it, there is going to be no pragmatic solution as long as Republicans control Congress, and Republicans will continue to control Congress until we offer solutions that work for people. So rather than rolling your eyes at the Bernie Sanders health plan, if you're truly on the left, tell me what you would do instead and make it better. Now, as for Coldplay and Beyonce, they have a new collaboration out and they have a video. The song is Hymn for the Weekend, Hymn, Hymn for the Weekend, and it has been accused, in my view, quite rightly, of being cultural appropriation. It is set in an India that exists only in the Westerner's fantasy. In other words, I think you can probably guess what we see in this India of Coldplay's and Beyonce's. We see poor people. We see Bollywood-type scenes. We see holy men throwing colored dust on people. In other words, it is a sentimental version of India that trivializes and stereotypes one of the largest population groups in the world. This I don't really go for. This is, people say, well, what's wrong with that as long as people enjoy it? And I'll tell you, what's wrong with it is that people enjoy it at the expense of other people. It is hurtful to the people of India. It is hurtful to people of Indian background. And it's, by the way, it's not a terrible song. I'm not a Coldplay hater completely. It's not a particularly good song, but it's not a terrible song. Now, I'll close with this, with Coldplay. Reportedly, they asked David Bowie to collaborate with them at one point, and they sent him a letter. I think this is an embarrassing idea. Frankly, I would have been embarrassed to propose this to Bowie. Collaborating with them on a song in which Bowie would play, quote, a David Bowie type character. They sent him a letter and the song, and he responded with one line: "It's not a very good song, is it?" So don't get on the wrong side of David Bowie.